Thank you. Okay, this is lesson. You can, yeah. This is lesson 11.3, test for independence, and I want to show how to do this using matrices on your calculator. Matrices is just a fancy word for rows and columns of numbers. So the directions on how to do this, well, the actual problem is on page 613. This is not one of your assigned problems, it's just an example. So let's go to that page and read the problem first. Page 613, number 3. The federal government has proposed labeling tires by fuel efficiency to save fuel and cut emissions. A survey was taken to see who would use these labels. At alpha equal 0.10 is the gender of the individual related to whether or not a person would use these labels. The data from a sample are shown here. So they're thinking about taking tires and on them putting fuel efficiency. How many miles per gallon that this particular tire, how it might help your fuel efficiency or hurt your fuel efficiency. Okay? And then they asked men and women. Out of the men, 114 said yes, they would use those labels when buying tires. 30 said no, they would not. 6 said they were undecided. They asked a bunch of women. 136 said they would use the labels if they were on the tires. 16 said they were not. 8 said they're undecided. Here's our null. Using the proposed labels is independent of gender. In other words, there would be, independent means there would be no relationship between your gender and whether or not you'd use these labels or not. The alternative would be then, using the proposed labels and gender are dependent, or you could say are related. You could use related instead of dependent if you want there. Independent means not related, this means related. Okay? You're always going to say either independent or not related in the null. In the alternative, you're either going to say dependent or that they're related. Part B, find the critical value. If you're using the traditional method, and this test I'm going to give you a choice on this problem. You can use the traditional method, the p-value method, and you can use the calculator if you want. So let's show you how to do that. The actual directions on how to do that are on page 611. Where it says TI83 plus or TI84 plus step by step. Press second and then x to the negative 1 for matrix. So if you look at your calculator, push the blue second button, and then 3 buttons below that you see x to the negative 1 power, and it has the word matrix right above it. Push that x to the negative 1 button. Next, move the cursor to edit. Then push enter. Any questions so far? Second, x to the negative 1. Then go over to edit. Then push enter. Now, we have to put in the dimensions of our matrix. It's rows by columns, kind of like if you ever heard of RC pop, RC, rows, columns. So there's 2 rows. Rows run sideways. Columns run up and down like the columns on a house. So 2 rows, 3 columns. So this is a 2 by 3 matrix. So if you don't have 2 by 3 there, hit 2, enter, 3, enter. Make sure you have 2 by 3. Then we're going to put in the numbers. Our entry in the first row, first column is 114. So put in 114. Entry in the first row, second column should be 30. First row, third column is 23. Second row, first column, 136. Numbers from right here. Second row, second column is 16.
Where did you 23?
Good question. What should it be? 6. Okay, I'll go back and get 6. I'm not sure where I got 23. I think I looked up here. 6. Oh, maybe I looked up here. I'm not sure. Okay, thank you for correcting me there. So your bottom right hand, your second row, third column should be 8. Now let's go back up and change that to a 6. There we go. Does that look better? Okay. So these are your observed values. Someone went out and actually did a survey and observed these numbers. What's nice is we're not going to have to figure out the expected values. You know, we did like row sum times column sum divided by grand total yesterday. The calculator's going to do all that work for you here. Next, it says enter the values in the matrix. We did that. Number 4, step 4, press stat move the cursor to tests. So you press stat, then use your right arrow to go over to tests. Now you're going to go down to choice C. So it's down a ways, where it says chi-square test. Everybody find that? Okay, push enter. And our observed numbers we put in A already. The expected values are in B. You don't have to put them in there. The calculator automatically figured them out for you. This is really the time savers. The calculator figured out your expected values for you already. Now we're going to go to calculate. Push enter. And boom, there's our test value and our p-value. Now, you might notice I didn't find the critical value. Okay? We could do that. If we were going to do that, this is how we do it. Degrees of freedom would be number of rows minus 1 times number of columns minus 1. So there's 2 rows, so you can have 2 minus 1, 3 columns, times 3 minus 1. So it's 1 times 2, which would be 2. So you go to your chi-squared chart. Under degrees of freedom, you go to 2. For alpha, you go to 0.10. Anybody tell me what the critical value is if you look at your chi-squared chart? 4.605. Okay. So what that's saying is that, and this is always a right-tailed test, our critical value is at 4.605. And I just got a test value of 6.116. So 6.116.
Would you be interested in trying some ginger ale?
Let's stop that for a minute.